I thought I finally found the son I'd always wanted, until the night my daughter showed up at my door barefoot, bleeding and whispering the truth I should have seen all along. What we did next still haunts me. When do you realize you've become someone you don't even recognize? For me, it started the night my daughter, Ren, finally brought a man home. She hadn't dated anyone since her mother passed 3 years ago. And when she finally introduced me to Andrew, I was terrified I'd ruin it. He walked in wearing a button-down shirt, carrying a bottle of decent wine, offering me this firm, confident handshake. He looked me dead in the eyes when he promised to treat Ren with respect. Respect. That word nearly broke me. I'd been rehearsing all week, worrying I'd come across as the overprotective dad who scared off every guy before things ever got serious. After her mom died, Ren and I only had each other. We were each other's entire world. I knew deep down I had to let someone else in, even if it killed me to share her. And Andrew, he seemed perfect. When I mentioned I liked fishing, his face lit up. He told me about going on trips with his dad, before cancer took him 2 years earlier. That weekend he joined me at the lake. Just the two of us, 6 hours out on the water. We talked about everything, his accounting job, his plans to propose once he saved up for a proper ring. He even asked me for advice about marriage, about being a good partner. And he listened. Really listened. I told him about losing my wife, about wishing I'd had more time. And when I confessed Ren hadn't truly smiled since the funeral, Andrew promised me he'd bring joy back into her life. When we were packing up, I called him son. His eyes watered like I'd just handed him something he'd been starving for since his father died. Over the months that followed, he became the son I never had. And more importantly, he gave me back pieces of Ren I thought I'd lost forever. Suddenly she was laughing again. Smiling. Slowly becoming the girl I remembered before grief swallowed her whole. Andrew came by often, helping me with yard work while Ren was on her nursing shifts, fixing my garage door without letting me pay him, even keeping me company on Thursday dinners when Ren worked late. At Thanksgiving, he gave this heartfelt toast about finding not only love with Ren, but also family again. Everyone was teary-eyed, even my brother, who never cries. When my own father died suddenly in February, Andrew took time off work to stand beside me. He helped with the arrangements, supported me through the funeral, like he was real family. Then he asked for my blessing to propose, with his grandmother's vintage ring. And I told him nothing would make me happier. We started going on trips together, camping, fishing, hiking. One weekend in the mountains, he taught me how to fly fish. He stood knee-deep in that freezing river for hours, patiently fixing my casting while I tangled the line over and over. Ren sat on the shore, watching us. And her smile was the one I'd thought was gone forever. I thought maybe we'd finally found our way out of grief. But I was wrong. One night, pounding shook my front door so violently I grabbed the baseball bat from my closet. I flung it open, ready to swing. And there she was. My daughter. My Ren. Standing barefoot in pajamas in the freezing cold. The entire left side of her face, black, swollen, purple. One eye swollen shut. Blood dripping from her split lip. She collapsed into my arms before I could breathe. Between sobs, she told me everything. That Andrew had been hurting her for months. It started with grabbed wrists, then shoves, then punches, always where clothes could hide the marks. He made her believe she was broken, that she should be grateful he wanted her. That she'd ruin my happiness if I ever found out. But that night he got drunk. Accused her of cheating because she smiled at a grocery store clerk. And when she tried to leave, he punched her unconscious. The man I had called son, the man I trusted with my daughter, had been destroying her while I celebrated her return to life. And all the signs came crashing back. The heavier makeup. The way she flinched when he moved too quickly. Her silence at dinners while he dominated conversations. That Easter when she dropped a plate and went pale before Andrew smiled and said, "Accidents happen." The sudden shift in her wardrobe, every inch of skin covered. My daughter had been begging for help in silence, and I hadn't heard her. She cried herself to sleep on my couch. Her body still trembling even in unconsciousness. And when she woke, confused, terrified, until she recognized my living room, I looked at her bruised face and thought about her mother. About the promise I made on her deathbed, protect our daughter no matter what. Be both parents. Be her shield. And I knew what her mother would want me to do. I kissed Ren's forehead gently, tucked the blanket tighter and whispered, "I'm going to take care of this permanently. You'll never have to worry about Andrew again." My voice didn't even sound like mine. When morning came, Ren found me dozing at the table. She touched my shoulder, her voice fragile. "Dad, did you go see him?" I looked at her bruised face, darker in the morning light. Of course she knew. We could always read each other. "He's leaving town," I said simply. She winced as she lowered herself into a chair, clutching her ribs. "What did you do?" "What needed to be done?" We sat in silence, the weight of unspoken truth between us. Then she cried again, but this time out of shame. "I should have been stronger. Should have left months ago." I grabbed her hand. "No. None of this is on you." Later, I drove her to the hospital. Every bump in the road made her flinch, clutching her ribs. Inside, Dr. Michelle Schwartz saw her face and took us back immediately. She examined Ren gently but thoroughly, cataloging every injury with brutal detail. The split lip. The stitched eye. The bruised ribs. Finger-shaped marks on her arms. Older bruises fading on her back. "The state will press charges even if you don't want to," Dr. Schwartz said firmly. "With injuries this severe, it's out of your hands." Ren just nodded numbly. At 11 a.m., Detective Elizabeth Moody arrived. She looked to be in her 50s, with kind eyes and a calm authority that made me trust her instantly. She interviewed Ren privately while I paced outside, carving grooves into the linoleum floor. Through the window I saw my daughter crying, Detective Moody passing her tissues, waiting patiently for each word to come. An hour went by. Then another. When the hospital door finally opened, both women looked like they'd aged 10 years in that room. Detective Moody stepped out beside my daughter, her voice steady but firm. Mr. Atkins, we're going to find Andrew and put him in cuffs. Attempted murder. Assault. Battery. He's looking at serious time. I crossed my arms. If you can find him. Her jaw tightened. Men like Andrew always think they're cleverer than they are. Trust me, we'll get him. But when Ren and I got home that afternoon, I wasn't about to gamble on that promise. While she rested on the couch, I went to work. Deadbolts on every door. Reinforced the windows. I stood in each room, checking the sight lines from the street like I was fortifying a bunker. Her friend Laura showed up with soup, trying to brighten the mood. But when she asked softly if Andrew had tried to contact her, Ren glanced my way and whispered, "Dad scared him off last night. He won't come here." But she was wrong. The very next day, Andrew stormed into her hospital. Security footage showed him screaming at the guards, demanding to see her, claiming he was still her emergency contact. He fought them so hard it took 3 men to drag him out. Ren's boss immediately put her on leave, saying it was for her safety. When she got home, she collapsed into a chair, her face hollow. "He's taking everything from me," she whispered. "My job. My safety. Everything." "It's only temporary," I told her, though we both knew there were some things you don't get back. 3 days later, Detective Moody called again, her voice heavy with frustration. Andrew was gone. Apartment cleared out, phone shut off, cards unused. He'd vanished like smoke. "Do you have family out of town you could stay with?" she asked. "We're not running," Ren said flatly. "Not from him." But I could see the fear in her eyes. Andrew had studied us for months, our schedules, our habits, even the places we shopped. He knew us better than some relatives did. And now he was using that knowledge against us. That evening, I went outside to get groceries and froze. All 4 tires on my truck slashed. A note tucked under the wiper in his handwriting. "You took everything from me." Daniel came over with his toolkit, crouching beside me as we swapped out the rubber. His voice was quiet, too calm. "I've got a gun you can borrow if you need it." "Not yet," I muttered. But even as I said it, I knew not yet was turning into soon. "The offer stands," Daniel replied. "Some problems can't be solved with words." That night, around 2 a.m., Ren's screams jolted me from sleep. I found her barricaded in the bathroom, hamper shoved against the door, crouched in the tub shaking like a leaf. "He's here," she gasped. I heard him in the house. "He's here." It took an hour to convince her to come out. We checked every room, every closet, every shadow. Nothing. But the terror clung to her skin like a second layer. And just before sunrise, she asked me the question I'd been dreading. "Would you really have killed him that night?" I didn't answer. She already knew. By day 5, we were moving from place to place like fugitives, Daniel's house, a motel, Laura's apartment. Never 2 nights in a row. Ren hated it. Hated the idea of Andrew controlling us even in his absence. "This is what he wants," she snapped. "To make us feel like we don't have a home." Detective Moody checked in every day, telling us Andrew couldn't hide forever. Men like him, their obsession won't let them. He'll surface. He always will. And he did. On the 7th day, we made the mistake of going home for clothes. From the outside, everything looked untouched. But inside? Photos had been turned face down. My wife's picture missing from the mantel. And on Ren's bed lay a dead fish. The kind we used to catch on the lake. His message was clear: "I can get to you anytime I want." Ren stood there staring at it, her face hardening like steel. "I'm done running. This is Mom's house. Our home. He doesn't get to take this from us." "Ren," her voice was sharp. "Final. We make our stand here." The very next morning, Daniel called, his voice tight with urgency. "Mike, I just saw Andrew at the Chevron off Route 9. Buying gas cans. Talking to himself. He looked like hell, like a man with nothing left to lose." Gas cans. My blood turned to ice. Fire. He was planning fire. That evening I gave in. I took Daniel's gun and sat in the garage cleaning it, telling myself it was just a precaution. But we both knew the truth. Ren found me there. Watched me oil the barrel in silence before saying, calm as stone, "Teach me. I need to know how to protect myself. You won't always be here. And he's not going to stop." So I did. Down in the basement with the gun unloaded, I showed her the safety, how to check a chamber, how to aim. Her hands were steady. Steadier than mine had been that night at Andrew's apartment. "Mom would hate this," she whispered, sighting down the barrel. "No," I corrected gently. "Mom would hate that it's necessary." 2 days crawled by before Moody called with what she swore was good news. "We've tracked him to the Riverside Motel. We're arresting him tomorrow morning. This will end soon." Ren actually smiled. A real smile. First one since that awful night. We ordered pizza, tried to pretend things were normal. Pretended we weren't both armed now. Pretended Andrew hadn't already changed us into people we barely recognized. But the next morning it all went wrong. "He ran," Moody told me, frustration sharp in her voice. "Saw us coming, took off in his car. Crashed 2 miles down the road. Injured but alive. He's in custody. But Mike, he's saying you attacked him first." That Ren made the whole thing up. His lawyer's already spinning the case. 6 months until trial. 6 months of waiting, of fearing. And then a week later, the news that nearly broke us: Andrew made bail. "The judge doesn't see him as a flight risk," Moody explained. He'll have an ankle monitor. Rin went pale. And I felt that cold, heavy thing in my chest spread wider. He stayed just outside the restraining orders line. We'd see his car parked at the legal distance. Watching. Always watching. One night I followed him to a bar. Watched him through the window as he laughed, gesturing wildly, playing the victim to his friends. Probably telling them about his crazy ex and her violent father. Men like Andrew were always believed. I sat in my truck with Daniel's gun on the seat, imagining how easy it would be. Wait until he came out drunk, follow him down a dark street, make it look like a mugging. But Rin needed me more than I needed revenge. So I drove home where she was waiting at the kitchen table. You followed him, she said. Not a question. Yeah. Did you? No. But I wanted to. She nodded. Because she understood. He was twisting us both into something unrecognizable. And then 3 days later the call came. He'd cut his ankle monitor. He was gone. That afternoon the police found his car abandoned at the lake. Our lake. The place we'd fished together where I taught him knots passed down from my grandfather. He was poisoning every memory, weaponizing them against us. That night Daniel called again. His voice shook. He was here, Mike. In my garage. With a knife. We fought. I broke his arm but he got away. I'm bleeding but I'll live. You keep that gun close. He's desperate now. And desperate men are the most dangerous. The next morning Andrew called. His voice slurred from painkillers, but the venom was unmistakable. This is your fault. You turned her against me. We were perfect. You ruined it all. I gripped the phone, steady as stone. Then come try something. See what happens. His response was a growl, feral. Oh, I will. I'm going to take everything from you. Everything. And then the line went dead. We both knew it was coming to an end soon. One way or another. Detective Moody showed up later that afternoon, carrying evidence bags that looked heavier than they should have been. Inside Andrew's car they'd found journals. Dozens of pages, every one filled with Ren's name, scrawled over and over until the handwriting turned frantic, almost manic. Detailed plans. Notes about taking her. Receipts for rope and sedatives. She laid the photos out on the table like it was nothing but paperwork. To us it was a nightmare. Ren barely glanced before bolting to the bathroom, the sound of her retching echoing down the hall. I kept staring at those photos. My daughter's name, repeated hundreds of times by the man I'd once called son. And in that moment, that cold weight I'd been carrying inside me didn't just grow, it froze solid. We need to move you somewhere safe, Detective Moody said firmly. Somewhere he doesn't know about. That night I took Ren to the cabin. 3 hours north, deep in the woods. A place her mother and I had bought years ago but rarely used. Andrew had never been there. He couldn't know about it. We'd be safe. At least that's what I told myself. But when we pulled up, the dirt around the cabin told a different story. Boot prints. Fresh ones. Not ours. Circling the place like a predator testing a fence line. Ren's voice was barely a whisper. He found us. And the truth hit me, this was exactly where Andrew wanted us. Alone. No cell service. No neighbors for miles. I checked every lock, every window, while Ren tried to unpack like we were really staying. We had food for a few days, the bat, Daniel's gun. Enough to hold out until morning, then maybe get back to town. But even then something felt wrong. Too quiet. Like even the forest was holding its breath. At 10 p.m. the lights went out. Not a flicker. Not a surge. Just dark. It wasn't an accident. Stay calm, I whispered, though my own heart was racing. Get the gun. Footsteps followed, slow, deliberate, heavy boots moving across the deck. It was like something out of a horror film. No electricity, a cabin in the woods, and the monster outside. Except this wasn't fiction. Andrew was playing it out like he wanted us to feel the terror, wanted us to know he was right there. Run, lock yourself in the bathroom, I told her. She shook her head. No. We stay together. So we stood in the living room, backs against the wall. She had the gun. I had the bat. And then his voice floated in from the dark. I love you, Ren. I can't live without you. His tone shifted from pleading to threatening, love and hate tangling together into something poisonous. We were meant to be together. Your father turned you against me. But I forgive you. I'll always forgive you. Even after you made me hurt you. Ren's voice cut through the dark, stronger than I expected. You're sick. That laugh, high-pitched, broken, echoed through the night. Sick? No. You're the one who made me this way. You and your pathetic little family. Your dead mother. Your broken father. I tried to fix you. But you wouldn't let me. The window shattered. Glass flew everywhere as Andrew climbed through. His broken arm was in a filthy cast, his good arm gripping the knife he'd stolen from Daniel's garage. His eyes, wild, unfocused, like he wasn't even seeing us anymore. I swung the bat with everything I had, but he ducked, faster than he should have been. He lunged straight at Ren, knife raised. The gunshot thundered through the cabin, deafening, sharp. Andrew staggered back, blood blooming across his shirt, but he didn't fall. He kept coming, knife lifted. I brought the bat down hard on his shoulder. Something cracked. He screamed, dropped the knife, and collapsed to his knees, gasping. Ren stood frozen, gun still aimed, staring like she couldn't believe what she'd just done. I knelt, checked his pulse. Weak. Fading. He was dying right there on our floor. Minutes left, maybe less. I pulled out my phone to call 911, but Ren's hand stopped me. Wait, she said, voice steady in a way that sent chills through me. She stared down at him, remembering every bruise, every lie, every night she thought she might not survive. What would Mom do? She asked. We both already knew the answer. Her mother would have protected her daughter, no matter the cost. So we waited. 5 long minutes as his breath turned shallow, wet, ragged. His eyes found Ren one last time, full of confusion and rage, even as they went empty. Only then did I call. There's been an intruder, I told the dispatcher calmly. He broke in, attacked us. We defended ourselves. We need police and an ambulance though, it's too late for the intruder. When the officers arrived, the scene told its own story. Broken glass. A knife. A man with a violent history. Detective Moody separated us, took our statements. She looked at me just a second too long, like she knew there was more than what I'd told her. But she closed her notebook without pressing. You'll both need to come down for formal statements, she said. Standard procedure. At 2 a.m. I drove my daughter to the station. She sat beside me in silence, Andrew's blood still drying on her shirt. What could we possibly say? We'd crossed a line together. No longer just survivors, but accomplices in something darker than self-defense. Detectives split us into different rooms. I told my version, compressed the timeline so Andrew's death was instant. Not drawn out. Not deliberate. Detective Clark leaned back, studying me. You did what you had to do. Clear case of self-defense. But his eyes told me he suspected more. Cops always know. They just choose what they can prove. By dawn we were free to leave. News vans already crowded the road by the cabin. By morning it was everywhere. Local woman kills abusive ex in self-defense. They used Andrew's mugshot, painted him like the villain. They used Ren's graduation photo, painted her like the hero. And maybe she was. The narrative was neat, clean. No one questioned it. Ren's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Friends, co-workers, everyone asking why she never told them what she was going through. She just stared at her hands. How do I explain that shame screams louder than fear? She whispered. Daniel stopped by, helped me replace the window Andrew had smashed in my truck. Before leaving, he gripped my shoulder, steady. Your wife would be proud, he said. You protected Ren. That's all that matters. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to. But those 5 minutes wouldn't leave me. Would she still be proud if she knew what we chose? The case closed fast. Week 2, Moody called with the final word. No charges. Clear self-defense. Prosecutor won't even take it to a grand jury. You can move on now, she told me. But how do you move on from something like this? Ren went back to work 3 weeks later, pretending she was fine. But I saw the truth. She flinched at raised voices. She scanned every exit. She never put her back to a door. The trust she once had was gone. A patient grabbed my wrist today, she admitted one night. Just trying to get my attention. But I nearly broke his fingers before I remembered where I was. For weeks after Andrew's death, I cooked us a real dinner. No takeout. Just a home-cooked meal. Halfway through, she put down her fork, met my eyes, and said quietly, I'm not sorry he's dead. I'm sorry I had to be the one to pull the trigger. I'm sorry for what it's done to us. But I'll never be sorry he's gone. And I understood. Because the guilt wasn't about Andrew's death. It was about what his existence had turned us into. People who could choose to let someone die. The next week, I found Ren at the cemetery, sitting cross-legged by her mother's grave. She was talking softly, almost like a child confessing a secret. She told her mother everything, about Andrew, the abuse, the cabin, and the people we'd become in the aftermath. When I sat down beside her, she wiped her face and whispered. I asked her if she'd forgive us, for what we did and for what we didn't do. What do you think she'd say? I looked at the headstone, thought about the woman I'd loved. I think she'd say she's glad we're still here. That's all she ever wanted, for us to survive. Even if surviving changed us. Later that afternoon, Detective Moody stopped by. Not officially, she made that clear. Just checking in, she said. But over coffee, she shared something that shifted the weight sitting on my chest. Andrew had 2 other restraining orders, she told us quietly. Different women. Different states. Same escalation. You weren't his first victims. She hesitated, then added, but you were his last. Sometimes the system fails and people have to protect themselves. I'm glad you survived. After she left, Ren and I sat in silence. Andrew hadn't just hurt us, he'd been a pattern, a predator. And maybe ending him had saved women we'd never even meet. The following week, we went to Ren's apartment to box up Andrew's things. She'd been putting it off, but his cousin wanted his belongings. As we packed, Ren froze. Hidden in vents and behind picture frames, we found cameras. 3 of them. He'd been watching her. Even when he wasn't there, he was still in her life, still violating her space. How long? She asked, her voice hollow. But there was no answer that would make it better. That night, we burned the cameras in the backyard. Watched the plastic melt into nothing. Another secret between us. Another thing no one else would ever know. The weekend after, Daniel and Laura came over. Together, we repainted the house, every room where ghosts lingered. Ren's old bedroom. The living room where she'd collapsed that first night. The kitchen where we'd plotted survival. Laura put music on, opened a bottle of wine, tried to make it feel like a fresh start instead of an exorcism. Daniel cracked a joke about my terrible paint job, and Ren actually laughed. Not polite. Not forced. A real laugh that came from deep in her chest. And for one fleeting moment, she looked like herself again, the girl from before Andrew. Then the shadow slipped back in. But that small flash of light was enough to give me hope. 8 weeks after Andrew's death, we started therapy together. The counselor didn't waste time. She asked us point blank if we regretted that night. Ren and I locked eyes. A whole conversation passed in silence. We'd never spoken about those 5 minutes, the 5 minutes where we simply watched him bleed. But it was always there between us. We regret that it came to that, I said finally. We regret not seeing the signs earlier. We regret that Andrew forced us into violence. I hesitated, then added, we regret the 5 minutes. Funny, isn't it? That was the part we'd left out of our statements to police. The part Moody had never asked about when she told us so casually about his other victims. But not the outcome? The therapist pressed. Rin shook her head firmly. No, not the outcome. 2 months later, I found myself standing at the lake. The same lake where Andrew and I had once fished together, where he'd called me Pops with tears in his eyes. I remembered teaching him to tie flies, thinking I'd found a son. Had any of it been real? Or was it all manipulation designed to get closer to Rin? I'd never know. Predators like Andrew were perfect chameleons, showing you exactly what you wanted to see. Rin joined me there. She stood at my side, skipping stones across the water. For a long time we said nothing. Just watched the ripples fade. Does it matter? She finally asked. Whether any of it was real? I thought about it. I guess not. Real or fake, it led to the same place. She nodded. We survived. That's what matters. Even if we're not the same people anymore. As the sun dipped low, painting the lake in gold, Rin looked at me with eyes too old for her years. Do you recognize yourself anymore? She asked. It was the question I'd been running from for 2 months. I thought about the man I used to be, the man who taught Andrew to fish, who trusted him with family recipes, who called him son. That man was gone. In his place was someone colder, someone who had let a man die on the floor of a cabin. No, I admitted. But I recognized the man your mother needed me to become. The father who'd do anything to protect his daughter. She didn't argue. She just nodded because she understood. We were both strangers to ourselves now. As night fell, we stood together on the shore. The lake was calm, reflecting the first stars. We weren't calm. We might never be. But we were alive. Together. And sometimes that's the only victory that matters. Rin reached for my hand, her grip steady. Mom would understand, she said softly. She'd understand that sometimes love means becoming something terrible to protect what you love most. The lake would keep our secrets. It held the good memories and now the dark ones too. We weren't victims. We weren't heroes. We were survivors. People who had chosen each other over everything, even our own souls. And as we walked back to the car, leaving the lake to its silence, I knew one thing for certain. If it came down to it again, we'd make the same choice. Every single time. If you enjoyed today's drama, just imagine what's waiting in the next one. Hit like, subscribe, and let's go find the next train wreck together. Thanks for watching.